All right. Good afternoon, those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. So excited to be here with you. My name is Derek Thompson. I am the founder of Tweens and Technology, and we have an amazing show here for you today. We are going to talk about the stress and anxiety that many of our kids are facing right now, and really all the time, but I know that's heightened right now due to the pandemic that we've been facing. But before we go into our show, I just want to tell you a little bit about Tweens and Technology, and we'll get right into it. So Tweens and Technology is a tech organization that was founded over 6 years ago by TNT Creative Group. And our purpose is to get as many kids as possible into tech early. There's so many benefits to that, and we're seeing it. We have fifth graders, fourth graders, sixth graders that are just blowing our minds every day with the code that they're writing and the things that they're doing. And we really have a great generation of tech leaders that we're building here. So that's what we're all about. That's why we're here. We have summer camps and after school programs and all types of things that are in progress or about to kick off. And we hope to have your child with us at some point in the near future. But let's go ahead and start this fireside chat. I know many of you have tuned in to see our guests, so we're going to bring them to you. So I will be in the background. We're going to let our experts take it away. But I'd like to introduce to you first our panelist, Mr. Rob Martin. He is past president of the Information System Security Association, works with Cisco, has been a longtime supporter of Tweens and Technology, has given us many ideas, always comes and presents at our camp. Mr. Rob, thank you for joining us today.
It's an absolute honor to be here, Derek. Just wanted to tell everyone out there that we're talking to, please take an opportunity to look up Tweens and Technology, be a part of this wonderful opportunity to get involved in the lives of our next IT professionals that are going to push our global economy forward. So very excited about this fireside chat today and excited to get started. So the first thing we want to do is we want to start with our panelist. So we're going to start bringing our panelist in. The very first panelist that we have is Noelle Foy, author of ABC Worry Free. So she's going to come forward and just tell us a little bit about herself. So Noelle, please tell the audience a little bit about yourself, please.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks, Derek. I am so excited to be here today, and I'm so amazed at what Derek has done with Tweens and Tech and what you're offering there for young tweens. It's amazing, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot from everyone today. So I'm a neuroeducator, which just means I pay close attention to the science about the brain and how the brain best learns and responds. And I take that information and I transfer it into simple ways that we can use to our advantage in learning to decrease stress, to improve our mindset, and to boost executive function and learning and performance. And if you haven't heard of executive function before, this is a super important term and center of our brain that basically tells us what to do, where to do it, when to do it, and how to do it. And it helps us get started on a task, start our homework, stick with it when it gets tough, helps us plan and organize, keep our emotions in check if we're getting a little bit irritated or frustrated, and help us make a new plan if our plan isn't working. It's kind of like a coach or a conductor of an orchestra or a coach of a team that kind of cues, coordinates, and directs the players or the musicians to come in and play really nice music together or to work well on a team together. And it really helps us in school and in learning and our relationships.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that. What a skill set that we absolutely need during these trying times, and excited to get started in our conversation. I'd like to introduce our next panelist. Kami is a seventh grader with Tweens and Tech. So Kami, would you like to come forward and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Kami Ignacio. I've been in Tweens and Tech for like all three levels, and so far the level 3 has been my favorite level because we got to work with robots.
Well, that is exciting, Kami. So glad you're part of this. Just wanted to thank you again for your time today. What a blessing you are to everyone that's here, and what an inspiration to those around you. You're leading the pack, you're leading the charge. So I'd also like to introduce Diego, no stranger to me. He is a fifth grader with Tweens in Tech. So Diego, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, my name is Diego Thompson. I've been involved in Tweens in Tech since I was 5, and I like tech and sports, so I hope to bring them together one day.
Well, you certainly will, sir. Again, I also wanted to thank you for your time today. It's very valuable for you and Kami to come forward, and thank you again for being leaders in this tech industry. You're our hope, you're our pioneers as we're going forward. So let's go ahead and transition the discussion to talk about anxiety. So this question is going to be for Noelle. Wanted to talk about, what is anxiety? It's a great starter.
Yeah. Well, anxiety is a normal response to uncertainty or danger. And we all feel anxiety from time to time. You know, we can probably relate in this last year that we felt a little bit of anxiety about, let's say, having to do distance learning, or maybe anxiety about this pandemic, or maybe somebody in our family getting sick. So it's this feeling of unease or dread about the unknown. And it's our brain's way of responding to stress. And it's actually trying to protect us from danger or a threat. So we want to pay attention to anxiety. Say, for example, the smoke detector is going off in your house. You want to pay attention to that because it could be a real fire. Or if you find yourself in a risky situation, you want to pay attention to that. Sometimes anxiety can help you if you feel like a little nervous for a test or like making a speech. It might actually motivate you to actually study more. But the downside is sometimes we worry too much. And when we worry too much, this can get in the way of our learning. It can get in the way of our ability to perform and remember what we learned. And it can really get in the way of our enjoyment of life.
Wonderful. So how does it work? How does this anxiety work?
Well, anxiety works it usually starts with a trigger. And a trigger, like it could be taking a test, it could be getting on an elevator, it could be, for some people, they're afraid of heights. It could be a social situation. It's all sorts of things for different people. So it starts with the trigger. And the trigger sparks worried thoughts. And those worried thoughts, we start to think a lot of what ifs, like, something bad might happen. And when we do that, this activates a part of our brain called the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is about the size of an almond, and it's in the center of our brain. And this starts to go off like a smoke detector in our house, and it's like chirping, and it's like beep, beep, beep. And it's letting us know that there's a potential threat or danger. And then this starts to spray. If you imagine if you had like a spray bottle in your house, it starts to spray all sorts of stress chemicals through your body. And now this is going to make you feel a little bit different. You might feel a headache. You might feel sweaty. You might have a fast heartbeat. You might have a stomach ache. And you feel that stress in your body. And then you start to play like a video in your mind that things aren't going to end very, very well. And you go to fight, flight, or freeze. And when this happens, if you're in fight, you might say something nasty, or you might hit or throw something. If you're in flight, you might just want to leave the room, or in school, you might be going to the nurse a lot. If you're in freeze, you might kind of look frozen, or have that deer in the headlights look, and just kind of feel stuck. Or you might just play dead and just put your head down on the desk and say, I'm done. And I feel like a nice way to kind of show you what happens when you get stressed is by a quick little demonstration with a snow globe. If we imagine this snow globe is your brain, I want you to imagine that right now, everything that's at the bottom of this, for example, I don't know if you can see the glitter at the bottom. At that bottom, all that glitter represents all your thoughts, all your feelings, everything you've learned in school. And right now, we can see that anchor. We can see through this snow globe. It's nice and clear. And when our brain is calm, we can think clearly, we can remember what we learned, and we can make better decisions. Well, if we get angry, if we get frustrated, if we get really afraid, sometimes even if we're just really bored, what happens in our brain is all our thoughts and all our feelings, everything we learned now gets all swirly and mixed up, and then it's really hard for us to think clearly. And our emotional brain can basically hijack our thinking brain.
Excellent. That's what a wonderful analogy. I never really thought of it like that. So the anxiety takes up space in your brain. Can you talk a little bit more about that, how it takes up that space, please?
Yeah, sure. So anxiety likes to get us all stirred up. It likes to get us in a tizzy and toss us around and tell us that we can't do certain things or that we can't handle certain things. And we might think a lot of what if thoughts like, oh, what if I don't do well on this test? Or what if the teacher calls on me and I don't know the answer? Or what if I make a mistake and I look stupid? Or what if no one likes me? What if I never catch up if I'm behind? And all those worried thoughts take up a lot of space in our brain. And that doesn't stop the bad stuff from happening, but it can really get in the way of us enjoying the good stuff. And it can be very distracting when we have all those worried thoughts, and it can really prevent us from being present in the now and just enjoying what we're doing and enjoying the good moments.
Excellent. So we're going to talk a little bit about, so we're going to talk with Kami just a moment. So Kami, we're going to talk about the, we're going to talk a little bit more with Noelle about the stress response cycle. So tell us a little bit about that and how that works, please.
With the stress response cycle?
Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was when I was explaining about the snow globe. So it starts with a trigger. I'll give you an example. When I was in school, about the same age as Derek and Kami, I would get very anxious as I headed to science class. And I'd start to think thoughts like, I don't really understand. I feel a little bit lost in this class. I'm not quite sure if I did the homework right. I'm a little afraid that the teacher might call on me and I might not know the answer. Oh gosh, what if we have a pop quiz? And that would activate my amygdala. And then I'd start to feel a stomach ache or a headache. My heart would be beating really fast. And before you know it, I wouldn't be able to concentrate. And even though the teacher was, instructing the lesson, I was not able to take in the information. I wasn't able to remember the directions. It was as if my thinking brain was hijacked by my emotional brain.
That's excellent. It's almost like a paralysis. Well, I wanted to tell the tweens, guess what? That happens to me too. And I'm sure if all of us were honest to say that, we freeze too. We don't have the same environments, but we can also relate when we're in a very busy meeting and we get called upon and we get stressed out, and sometimes we'll blank, freeze, or have that kind of mental paralysis, if you will. But I'm excited to ask some questions to the tweens. So we're going to start with Kami. So what are some of the worries that take up space in your brain from time to time? What are things that you worry about, Kami?
Well, it could be talking in front of large groups or talking to new people. I'm not really good with that. Large groups kind of scare me because they're strangers I don't know, and I haven't met them before, and I don't know what to think. So I just get scared and think about all the bad things that can happen if I do a mistake or something wrong, and how they can judge me.
Absolutely. Well, I just wanted to applaud you now. What an eloquent speaker that you are, how well you're doing. So excellent job there. And you're talking to all these people. What's great is we don't have to see them. So we just see each other. So we have that comfort level so we can let our stressors go down. So Diego, I'm very interested in that same question. What are some of the worries that take up space in your brain from time to time?
Well, one main worry for me is if I have work that's overdue. I get really stressed, and I think that I'll get a bad grade or something on it.
Oh, absolutely. Again, we want to relate to you because if performances, that doesn't really change as we get older, but thank goodness we have Noelle that's going to help us with some strategies. I'm very excited about hearing those myself. So let's move on to another question. I'm going to go back to Kami for just a moment. So how does it feel in your body when you deal with anxiety? When you become anxious, how do you feel?
Well, I start to get my hands start to sweat because I get scared, and then I really don't make eye contact with anyone. Mm-hmm. And I can hear my heart beating really fast because I get all scared, and yeah, that's all.
Well, good. We're twins, so we do the same thing. It's never a time when I'm speaking publicly or speaking in a group that I'm not terrified on the inside. We have to do a good job of trying to manage that anxiety. So Diego, how does it feel in your body when you become anxious?
When I become anxious, I feel jittery, like everything starts just moving, and I usually get pretty hot and like almost sweaty, kind of hot. So, yeah, those are really the main two things.
Well, you're doing great, sir. You're doing great. So excited about this next transition. So we're going to talk, and well, we're going to need your help to explain what can we do about this anxiety. Take it away, please.
Yeah, so the great news is we can do something about it. And I am just so impressed with Kami and Diego for putting yourselves into situations like this that are a little bit uncertain, right? That takes some courage. And anxiety likes to move in when it knows that it's something uncertain. So we have to kind of boss it back around so it doesn't boss us around. And one thing that we can do that I find to be really helpful, and it's something that we always have with us, is our breathing. And if we can start to slow our breathing down and do slow, deep breaths, that sends a message to your nervous system to pump the brakes. It's kind of like on the car, just to pump the brakes a little bit and slow things down. So there's one breathing technique I really like, and it's called 4-6 breathing. So we inhale for 4, and then we exhale for 6. And here's what it looks like. And I'd love for you to join me if you feel comfortable doing so, is we put one hand in our chest and we put one hand on our belly. And as we do this, I want you to pay attention as we start to inhale and exhale. I want you to pay attention to your belly and your chest expanding and then flattening. All right. And we're going to do 3 of these in a row. So ready, set, go. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 6. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 6. Blow it out. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 6. Terrific. Thank you for joining me in that. So that's one thing you can do that will start to pump the brakes and help you reset. I would love to be able to tell you today that you can completely get rid of anxiety, but that is not true. We can learn to manage it though. And the breathing can be one quick step, and you can do that any place, anytime. Now, let's say you are in school or you're at a party or you're in a situation where you don't want to put it, the attention to you putting your hand in your chest on your belly. That's okay. You could still do this. You could be on a bus, on a train, in the car, walking. You could do this during a test, before a test, any place, anytime. So that is one thing that I highly recommend. Another strategy that I do, it's called the ABC strategy. And that's from my book, ABC Worry Free, which is my response to the increase in anxiety that we have been seeing in kids. And the strategy has 3 steps. First step is accept how you feel. The second step is breathe slow and deep. And the third step is change your thinking. So that's where the ABC comes from. Accept, breathe, change. And I'm not sure how well you can see it, but I'm just going to hold up an example. So here's an example of putting the 3 steps together. So for some kids, they've been really uncomfortable on the Zoom platforms or, doing distance learning. So they have to accept that I'm uncomfortable with that. And that's okay. You don't have to judge yourself for that. Just accept that that's how you feel. And when you start to have those worried thoughts about, oh, am I going to look silly in the Zoom platform, on the distance learning platforms? I feel uncomfortable. I feel self-conscious. When you think all those what if thoughts, start doing your breathing. Do the 4-6 breathing. And then if you can think about it in a new way, change your thinking. For example, here's a way that will keep that amygdala nice and calm instead of getting that smoke detector all revved up. You could think, learning new skills takes time, and we're figuring this out together. To be expected that it will feel a little uncomfortable at first. And here's another example. I was one of those kids in school that was very afraid of making mistakes. So I used to think mistakes as bad, and that would get my amygdala all revved up and make me feel very anxious. So I had to accept that mistakes made me feel uncomfortable, and they made me feel stupid if I made a mistake. So I'd have to do my breathing to help me reset and calm myself. And then I had to think about mistakes in a new way. And here's what I came up with. Mistakes help me learn. Improvement, not perfection, is my goal. And that kind of thinking kept my amygdala in a calm state, so I was able to learn and remember what I learned, instead of getting that amygdala all revved up, and getting my thoughts and everything I learned all mixed up so that I couldn't think clearly. And that strategy is something that you can check out. I have a YouTube channel at NeuroNoel, and I have a video about the ABC strategy. It's something that takes a little bit of practice, but you could look at the video and kind of take it step by step. And I recommend, making up one, and you can take a picture on your phone. You can put it on an index card, put it next to your laptop or your study space. And sometimes actually what really helps is if you make a video of yourself saying the steps and then you watch that video.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I know we've got a few more things to discuss where we're going to talk a little bit about sleep time, screen time, and we're going to talk about exercise and face-to-face interaction. So Noelle, would you lead us in that, please?
Yes. So I am a little concerned that some kids might not be getting enough sleep. So we know that sleep helps us be alert and focused, and it really helps our thinking ability, and it can really help us have better mood as well. And the brain works really hard during the day, but believe it or not, it works really hard when you're sleeping too. So sleep is really important. And we're finding that, if kids are on their phones a lot or on their devices a lot, that they are more likely to get a little less sleep. So that's something that we can talk about a little bit more and talk about some things that might help in that regard.
Absolutely. I know for me, at night, some of my strategies is to not spend time on my phone. If I'm looking at something or maybe texting, an hour goes by really quickly as I'm doing that. But I would like to learn a little bit more about screen time. Can you talk a little bit more about that and the impacts of screen time, please? Noelle?
Yeah. So we're finding that for folks and for kids and adults who are on screens more, that they are reporting poor, less quality sleep time. And they're more likely to have depression and some other challenges with self-esteem. So it's just something we want to be mindful of. And to your point, Rob, looking at our phones in that last hour of sleep actually has been shown to contribute to us getting about an hour less of sleep. So I try to actually put my phone in a separate room before I go to bed. I don't keep it next to my bed, because if I hear that little ping, and even when it's on the silent mode, I can still hear that little vibration, and that kind of wakes the brain up again. And I really want to be in a restful sleep, restful state to sleep. And we've all been on our screens a little bit more, certainly during this year with the pandemic. A lot of kids doing distance learning. They have to do their homework, some of it at least on the screens, and then they might be playing video games. They might be connecting with their friends online, which we're supposed to be home a little bit more, right, during this pandemic. So in some ways we're doing things that we're supposed to, but we have to kind of be mindful about how much time are we spending on the screens, and are we getting some face-to-face interaction as well? And are we getting outside and getting some exercise and some movement as well? So just something to be aware of. We want to monitor it a little bit.
Wonderful. I know exercise, there's never a time where I look forward to starting exercising, but I always feel better when I do it. So it's something that I don't enjoy going after, but it was something necessary, and I always feel good when I exercise and get a good night's sleep. So let's transition a little bit. I'm going to start with some questions. So what we're going to talk about now is, let's start with some of the positives of technology. We talked about some of the issues that are around technology, but let's start with some of the positives. So Amy, I'm going to start with you first. What are some of the positives that technology brings to our lives?
Sorry.
You're fine.
Some positives. Well, it does help you keep track of something sometimes. It also helps you with many things, like if you're researching something or like for school, work, or um, just for like help. Yeah, sometimes you just gotta like look up things that you need help with, or just to keep your brain off of something you don't really want to think about right now.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. How wonderful it is to be able to Google something that you don't understand for school or for home and be able to have all those choices. So, Kami, what a great point. So, Noelle, what are some of the positives that you see that technology brings to our lives?
Well, I got to say, for example, with me being an educator, I've been connecting with all my teachers and counselors, corporations, organizations, all of my students by doing these Zoom or distance learning kind of platforms. So it's been amazing to be able to stay connected with people throughout this year and continue to work. I am not the most tech savvy person at all, so I was a little bit intimidated to learn about all these platforms. And I'm really excited that I pushed through that anxiety, because that did make me anxious. So I had to step into a little bit of discomfort in order to push through that challenge. But I'm really glad that I did. So that's a huge benefit. And I do think, it has helped us stay connected. I haven't been able to see my kids and friends as much this year. So staying connected through Zoom, and, we sometimes do some category games and, have some fun little birthday celebrations over Zoom. And so there were some great benefits. And for folks that live in very rural areas, or for some kids that have trouble connecting in person, it's nice to have that connection with the technology. And then there are some apps that can help us to kind of track our technology use. So we can use technology to track our technology use as well. So there definitely are a lot of benefits too.
Perfect. Well, Diego, bring us home. So what are some of the positives that technology brings to you, sir?
It helps us do virtual school, like learn school from home for people that want to do that. And like if you don't know something, like if you want to cook something and you don't know the recipe for it, you can look online for a recipe. And it can also provide entertainment, which makes people happy.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to a meal being cooked. Once the pandemic's coming over, I'm coming over. You got all these recipes. We're going to do this. I wanted to share also the positive technology is how technology has driven us to be able to work from home. For many of us, we're able to transition and keep employed. For our young students, we're able to connect with each other, be able to talk to each other. I'm able to talk to family that I can't interact with because of what's going on, but I have that opportunity. So I want to change gears. We're going to flip the coin over, and we're going to talk about some of the negatives, and we're going to go the opposite direction. We're going to start with Diego and say, what are some of the negatives that technology brings to you, sir? What are some things that are challenging about technology?
Well, sometimes a lot of the time you don't spend as much as time outside as you want to. But and also if you like get addicted to it, then you don't really do many other things, and that's not, and a lot of screen time isn't healthy for you.
Absolutely. That's an excellent point. So Noelle, what are some of the negatives that comes along with technology?
Yeah, and I think sometimes we might not even be aware of some of the negatives. With the social media, for example, I think scrolling, through all of the images, for some kids, they might feel a little bit left out. Some kids might start to be judging themselves or feeling that they have to have this perfect look, they have to have the perfect hair or friends or outfit, and they may start to put a little bit of unnecessary pressure on themselves, or they may feel they're missing out. And they can, sometimes be consumed by how many likes am I getting. And it is kind of hard to turn it off and take a break from it. With something new being posted all the time, you can have that sense that you might be missing something. And collectively, these kind of feelings can lead to stress. And Diego mentioned how it can feel addictive at times, right? And we want to keep going back and checking. And half of teens will report that they do feel addicted to their mobile devices. And 72% will say that they feel they need to immediately respond to their text and their social networking messages. So I think we need to pay attention to those feelings because there is a link between social media and depression and isolation, especially for kids who are at risk for mental health challenges.
Okay, well, Kami, so
important to, sorry.
You're fine.
I was going to say, I think it's really important for us to ask ourselves, like, how do we feel when we use social media, or other platforms? I think it's really important to notice your emotions and kind of, take note of that. That's kind of giving you some good information. If it doesn't feel good or it's making you anxious, take note of that.
Yeah, so I kind of have that gut check of, I've looked at all these things. I've spent the last 30 minutes doing this. How do I feel after I've reviewed these things or read these messages or looked at the social media? That's a great point. So Kami, what are some of the negatives for you with technology? What are some things that are challenging?
It's kind of like what Diego said. It's unhealthy for you, and it's kind of like you're so stuck in what's going in on the screen that you're not aware of what is going out in the outside world, and you're like isolating yourself. You're not improving on anything, but you're staying stuck in that one place in that screen.
Excellent. Well, I know for me, I lose track of time. So if I'm watching something or if I'm reading something, it just seems like a few minutes, what was the result out of that? And more importantly, how do I feel? I know there are some challenging things, but I want to have positive things that I read too. So having that wonderful balance, that's excellent. So let's transition and talk a little bit about screen time. So Noelle, how does increased screen time affect our brain, mood, and stress?
Yeah, so like we were saying, these things can make us feel a little bit, we can be at more risk for depression and for self-esteem issues. And, that feeling of pressure that you have to kind of keep up with everybody. And many of us, especially I think younger folks might not be reminding ourselves that this is an edited version of life. And so I think it's really important, to kind of ask ourselves questions like, are we getting enough sleep? Are we getting some form of exercise every day? Are we spending some quality time with our family? Are we really staying in touch with our friends in other ways? I know it's a pandemic, so we have to be responsible in how we do it. But are we also staying connected in some ways in person, in safe ways to do so? Are we keeping up with our homework and those kinds of things? How are we spending our free time? If we're spending the bulk of our free time behind a screen with all the screen time that we're already, kind of focused on with the distance learning, I think that, it's important to have a balance and to just be paying attention to that.
Excellent. Well, we're gonna focus on our tweens for just a second. So, Kami, do you prefer to hang out with your friends online or you prefer in person?
I prefer in person.
It's just that good interaction, huh? That's good. How about you, Diego? Do you like to be online or do you prefer to have that in person?
I prefer to hang out with my friends in person because I get to actually interact with them, like play games, sports, watch a movie, have sleepovers and stuff like that. So, but you can't really do that online. So, I like in person.
Well, I think Noelle would probably say the same thing. We're looking forward to this being over. This has not come to stay; it's come to pass, and we'll be back and being able to interact with one another. So, another question for the tweens. We'll start with Diego. So, do any of your friends tell you they feel alone or isolated? Have you heard any of that feedback from your friends?
Yeah, I heard that earlier in the school year, but now they're pretty much used to virtual school, so yeah.
Get an opportunity. So, Kami, do any of your friends have those feelings of alone or isolation? Have you spoken or heard anything from them? You there, Kami? Looks like you might be muted, so just hit that unmute button and go forward. No problem. There you are. Okay, no problem. So we're going to come back to you, Kami. So Diego, as we're moving through this, do you know what to do or say if your friend needs help? Do you have any thoughts on that? You know what to do when that happens?
Well, I might say like you'll get used to it, or yep, it's gonna be okay, and stuff like that, really.
Well, that's good. That's a good encouraging piece. So it looks like we got you back, Kami. So I'm going to go back to that first question. When we talk about, do any of your friends ever feel alone or isolated? Have they told you that they feel that way?
It's not really my friends. It's more like I only keep up with one friend, and it's more like me telling them I feel isolated.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. We're going to ask you another question. So hang on, we're going to unmute you there for a second. So we all feel that way. I know I do. I'll speak for me. There's times where you feel alone and isolated. We're trying to be responsible during this time. This is our responsibility to make sure that we're wearing masks, that we're keeping and abiding by what our laws and regulations say right now. So that's really good. So Kami, do you know what to do if a friend needs help? If they reach out to you, do you know what to do during that? If they say they're alone or isolated, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's more likely like if they want to do anything, or like they just want to talk just to get them off of the mind. I find ways to cheer them up so they won't feel so bored or alone anymore. And then after I see that they're good, I think I make sure they're okay before I leave them, because I don't really have much time to hang out with them. But I just make sure they're okay before I let them go till the next day.
Well, that's a wonderful quality. We all need that. We need that encouragement. We need that. It's going to be okay. It's good to hear that. It's good to have that within our souls. So, Diego, I got this one too, because this is me. When your phone goes off, do you feel the need that you have to immediately go and check it? Do you go and grab it when it beeps?
Well, I do, because I just want to see if everything's okay. Like I don't want to just leave it there if a family member texts me. So I just check it every time to see if everything's okay.
Oh, okay, that's good. So, Kami, when your phone goes off, do you immediately have to grab it and see what's going on?
Yeah, I always have the phone with me. I'm stuck up on that. If they need something or there's an emergency, I always check it, and I can never go without checking it 30 minutes later. Like it has to be within 30 minutes that I check it, or else I have guilt that I didn't check up on them.
I think we all feel that way. I think that's a natural thing. When my phone buzzes, the eye goes to it. Oh, I'm going to miss something. Oh, I got to get to it. So again, we're going to a couple more questions for the tweens. So, Kami, do you feel like you have a balance between your online life and your face-to-face life? Is there a balance there?
I think there's more online at this point. Like before the pandemic and everything, I was more face-to-face. But as the pandemic hit, everything started to isolate. So I started going more online, and I only get like a few hours of face-to-face.
Okay. So, Diego, what's that balance? Do you have that balance, sir?
Well, I do virtual school, and I stay home a pretty good lot. So I don't really have a really good balance from face to face, but I do think I do have a balance of online time and outside time, because I like to play sports and read. So yeah, but not the in person, because I don't see that many people just in person.
Absolutely. Well, that's where we are right now. So, healthy limits. So, Kami, do you set up healthy limits when it comes to the amount of time you spend on social media? So, when you're looking at your social media, do you have healthy limits? Do you have a little little timer there to keep you in check?
I don't have exactly a timer. I just don't like to go above specific hours. Like I look at the time, and then if I know that it's too much, I just stop and go do something else that doesn't involve technology.
That's excellent. So Diego, so do you have those healthy limits, sir? Are those things that you do? What are some of those strategies for you, sir?
Well, I think I do because a lot of times I go play basketball and go read and play other sports. So I don't really go on my phone that much because I have a lot of other interests.
Well, that's excellent. So both for Kami and Diego, you're influencing everyone who's going to watch this. So all the young folks that are there, the tweens that are in your same age group, they'll take these skills, these recommendations, and turn those into healthy practices in their life. So we're going to transition back to Noelle. What are some tips to manage screen time? What can we do there?
Well, I think it actually is a great thing to just start with the adults modeling good screen time as well. I think that kids look to adults for how to manage, especially difficult times, right? So I think striving for a balance is really important of on and offline activities. We can turn off notifications, and I am definitely a fan of not bringing the phone to the dinner table or family mealtime. I mentioned about I don't have it around me when I'm trying to work, actually. I find that it's really distracting. So I'll check it periodically, but try not to have it right next to me. And I think with kids who are trying to study, it might be a little bit distracting if it's right next to them. So I would recommend putting it in a different place when they're trying to get their homework done. And it would be kind of interesting to see if they feel that they can get it done even a little bit more efficiently when they don't have their phone. Because I do feel it's distracting, and then we kind of have to recenter ourselves and refocus what it was that we were, engaged in before we were distracted by the phone. And I wanted to go back to something that Kami and Diego had mentioned about, supporting kids who might be feeling a little bit down or isolated. I think it's really important to listen to them. And it sounds like they have been really good friends to some folks that were feeling a little bit lonely. Listen and validate, so those folks feel, those friends feel validated and heard. Very often what we say to folks when they're anxious or stressed is don't worry about it or calm down. And those aren't real effective responses, even though we hear them a lot. They don't really help us build skills and help us to really let's say, acknowledge our feelings, kind of sends the message of dismissing them. So I think listening and helping others feel validated and heard, and then helping them to learn about their brain and to know that they can do something. There are strategies out there, and there are people who can be supportive in their life to help them manage it. There is something, anxiety is treatable, and there are lots of things they can do to manage it.
That's excellent. I wanted to say how relevant this was. One of my favorite speakers, his name is Jordan Peterson, talked about anxiety and complexity. So complexity was something that he had mentioned is simplifying things, focus on the basic things. So Noelle, you said something so wonderful. Let's just breathe. Let's just start with breathing. Yeah. Let's start with sleep. Let's start with good, healthy food. Let's start with exercise. Diego, you made a wonderful point in saying, I spend time outside. Maybe it's whatever sports that you're playing or anything that you're going to do, that's the thing that you're really excited about. You want to get out and do those things. Kami, you mentioned encouraging, very basic things, very simple things. I'm going to encourage my friends. Very excited about that. So now I'm very excited about into the Q&A. So I know we have some questions we want to post. So we have live Q&A. If our audience wouldn't mind putting in those questions and answers, we're going to have some that are going to pop on the screen, and we'll get those answered right away. So this one's for Noelle. So hi, Noelle. I heard that the light from our screen impacts melatonin levels, and a melatonin supplement can help with getting a better night's sleep. Is that right?
Well, it can be for some folks. I do try to, that's one reason why I don't keep my phone near me when I'm ready to go to bed. I actually have a whole bedtime routine. I honestly try to shut down my screens at least 2 hours before I want to go to bed. So I shut everything down. If I don't do that, I find that I have a harder time falling asleep. And so that I think having a good nighttime routine where you really do shut the screens down a couple hours before you want to go to bed is helpful. Melatonin is helpful for some folks. What I want to really point out, though, is that it's really the worried thoughts. A lot starts with our thoughts. And if we can calm ourselves and learn some good strategies for calming our thoughts and talking back to anxiety, for example, we will be able to tame that amygdala. It's the amygdala that is chirping, that's keeping us awake. So it's thinking that there might be a threat. So that it's going to be hard for us to sleep when the brain thinks there's a threat. So for example, if you have a smoke detector in your house that sometimes goes off when there's no fire, the amygdala does the same thing. So that part of your brain is chirping even when it's a perceived threat. And that's because the brain is doing its job. It's trying to alert us of a threat. But sometimes the threats are not life-threatening emergencies. It could be just an annoyance or a worry. And that's enough to activate that amygdala. So the brain doesn't know the difference between a perceived threat and a real life emergency. Just like if you had burnt toast, in your house, the smoke detector is going to go off. Just as the smoke detector is going to go off if there's a real fire. So that can happen sometimes, and that will keep us awake if that amygdala is going off.
Wonderful. I know we've got some more Q&A coming in, so let's post that next question. Should be coming up in just a moment here. All right. So hi, Kami. Oh, this is perfect. So Kami, are you coming to our camp this summer to be a mentor for our younger students? ? There you go, Kami, ready for you.
I don't know if I'll go back to mentor the younger students. I mean, I would love that. I would be glad to go back to the camp. It was really fun. But to mentor, I don't really know.
Well, it's certainly an opportunity for you to give back. I know it has to be a comfort level, but I know that even the ones who are watching this get an opportunity to be inspired. I know that's part of as we become leaders, that's part of this is coming in and taking that time and maybe just relating to a younger person to say, hey, I've been in there. So Jackie has a question, and I believe this might be targeted more towards Noelle. Does screen time at an early age lead to stress and anxiety?
I think it's important to notice, pay attention to what it is you're doing on the screen time. I don't think all screen time is created equal. So if the screen time is for something, educational, I think that, that could have some benefits. I think, really depending on what it is that you're doing and kind of monitoring how long you're doing it. I don't love the idea of young kids in front of screens, for more than, an hour or so. I don't know exactly what early age that she's referring to, but I would keep it to education related types of, games and that type of thing, and monitor it, just an hour or two, I would say.
Excellent. Well, I certainly had a question as we were talking about diet and exercise. The first question that I had, and this is directed towards Noelle, would be, as far as exercise, is there a better time to exercise? Is that right after work? Is it right before bed? Is there a cutoff time that you exercise that you don't keep yourself up and running as your body's really energized from that workout?
That's a good question. I try not to exercise at night. That can definitely re-energize us. So first, I personally would avoid exercising after 6 o'clock at night. And I tend to try to do it earlier in the day or in the afternoon. It depends on my work schedule. Sometimes I will do exercise right before I have something really challenging to do, and that really helps me be a little bit more alert. On days where I can't get in like a really full workout, I do make sure that I get a lot of short movement breaks in every hour. So I might take a break, let's say, it doesn't have to be a long break. It could be 30 to 90 seconds. I might every half hour do a quick 30 to 90 second movement break. It could be anything from jumping jacks to burpees to a quick dance, a quick dance video. Could be anything, any kind of movement that you like. And that really does kind of wake up the brain and the body, and then give that brain more space for new memories and learning.
Okay, excellent. And then the follow-up question to that is eating. So sometimes for me, if I eat really late, I have a hard time sleeping. Maybe Diego, maybe Kami, or Noelle, you're having the same issue. Is there some good advice there? If I can't sleep, of course, there's some anxiety there. I can't get to sleep. What are your thoughts there, ma'am?
Yeah, I think healthy food, is a great idea. Having good balanced nutrition is a great idea. I personally try to avoid eating too late myself. So, giving your body a little bit of time to digest, that takes some energy for the body. So that could keep us awake for a little bit. So eating, if you're trying to fall asleep at a certain time, I would try to eat at least a few hours before that.
Excellent. So I have a question for Diego. Diego, when is your first sports app going live?
It's going live really soon.
Whoa.
I know it.
All right.
Yay.
So when are the Carolina Panthers going to win the Super Bowl?
Next year. If not
Next
the year
year.
after that.
All right.
Not the year after that.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I certainly have a question for Kami and Diego. So I wanted to talk about just tweens as an example. Do you think it's important for you to talk to your parents about your anxiety? So Kami, do you feel like it's important to talk to mom and dad about that? Talk to your parents?
Yeah, it's important. I think it is because, it might be nervous, like you might get nervous at first and be scared, like they might tell you something wrong, be like, oh no, it's not that important, you'll get over it. But I feel like if you tell them in the right time and in the right way, it might turn out good, and they might find a way to help you.
Oh, that's good. So Diego, this is your question as well. So you find it's important to talk to your parents about your anxiety, and as Kami was just saying, what are some of your strategies there?
I think it is important to talk to your parents about anxiety because they can give you strategies to try to help that anxiety. And if you do have anxiety, then you can do the suggestions that Noelle just said.
That's excellent. So we're finishing up with the Q&A. I just wanted to say thank you so much to Noelle. Thank you to Kami. Thank you to Diego. What a blessing this is to be able to talk, and to all of our listeners that this pandemic, this time has not come to stay, it's come to pass. So with that, I'll thank all of our panelists, and I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Derek Thompson to get us finished up, sir.
Hey. Well, great job. It was very insightful. I made a lot of notes, and, I was sitting here reading this book, ABC Worry Free, by somebody I know. So, Noelle, how can we get a copy of this book? I know many parents would like to have this. Parents and kids would like to have this.
You could just go to Amazon, or you can go to the National Center for Youth Issues. The abbreviation for that is NCYI. So you can get ABC Worry Free at either Amazon or NCYI.
Perfect. And I tell you what, the first 10 people that are watching this, if you go to our Fireside chat page on our site and enter your information on that form, we will send you a copy. All right. Great. Well,
This was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. Thank you for being here. And looks like we have another question. Why don't we end with this final question from Maria, who is with Code Combat, one of our big partners. Let's end with this one.
That's a great one to ask, Maria. And humor is enormously positive force in our life. So we all need some fun, humor, some silliness, especially now after this year we've had. So we want humor every day. It gives us this little dopamine boost, which is like a happy chemical, and that really helps our mood. And then we'll be in a better state to learn. We'll be more present with friends and family, and be more able to get stuff done, especially when it's hard. So humor's awesome. So go get some every day. Have some laughs and some fun and silliness.
Great. Thank you for your comment, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with Diego and Kate and Kaylee and Kami. Thank you so much for sharing your stories.
Absolutely. Well, to everyone, I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you, Derek, and all the panelists.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.